Research, teaching and learning. Number 2 presents how to build strategies for building classroom communities in schools. Yeah.
My literature review specified within the practice of yarning to foster a sense of classroom community. Mills, Sunderland, and Davis-Warrer, 2013, define yarning as a practice where speaking and listening is utilised for reflecting on experiences, fostering relationships, and sharing knowledge. There was very little academic research on the practice of yarning in relation to fostering a sense of classroom community. The literature review had to be expanded to the process of storytelling. The practice itself is similar. This expansion to storytelling provided more academic literature. Both processes are often used for literacy-based classrooms or activities. The literature review recognised storytelling had 2 subcategories: storytelling as dramatic practice and storytelling as classroom engagement. A gap found within the current academic literature is that there is a lack of longitudinal research within Australian secondary schools. 8 different articles were chosen for analysis. 5 out of the 8 articles were from various countries which offered an international perspective on yarning and storytelling. 3 out of the 8 articles were from the Australian context, but within primary school or research practices. Dominant themes which emerge from the literature review are the organisation of the activity, nature of the activity, mutual respect, authentic communication, reciprocal learning, and empathy building relationships.
In my research, I am looking at how drama and theatre techniques can be used as a strategy for building classroom community. I studied 9 articles that use theatre in education, from primary school to tertiary education to professional development workshops. However, only 2 used theatre as a strategy to build classroom community. Maples outlines how she improved her Year 8 students' public speaking skills through improvisational theatre games, while also increasing classroom participation. Sarah Lovesey explores the connection between physical movement, brain function, and problem-solving abilities with high school drama students. Although the remaining 7 papers do not explicitly state building classroom community as the desired outcome of their implementation of theatre exercises, all of them tangentially refer to the positive effects that theatre games has on the community. Yuri Allen, for example, in his 2013 TED Talk, discusses how he uses theatre games to reduce the fear of failure among his PhD students and to build a culture of collaboration and sharing within his lab. My primary research interview subjects all state that classroom community is essential to learning and spent a lot of time building and fostering collaboration between students. All 3 of my interviewees were drama teachers. However, subjects 2 and 3 were also secondary English teachers, and both stated that they used theatre and performance education strategies in the English classroom as well. A synthesis of the literature research and the primary source material indicates collaboration, empathy, and creativity as the shared interest of educators who use theatre as a part of their pedagogy, which are all essential elements of a functioning community.
The purpose of my research was to investigate parent engagement and student learning through homework tasks which were used as a vehicle for parent-teacher communication. Minimal research has been conducted in regards to engaging parents in student learning at home in an Australian context. According to Hackford, O'Sullivan, Chen and Fish, parental involvement has a positive effect in relation to the completion of homework. Furthermore, Watt suggested that parent-teacher communication is important as it relates to student academic achievement. Overall, it was these 2 statements and support from other journals that triggered me to investigate if similar evidence could be found in an Australian context. In order to gather data based on parent and student engagement, I produced a document which would be attached to student homework and used as an artifact for data collection. The document allowed for parents to communicate with the teacher in the comments section, in which parents would provide details on student engagement with the task. After coding and categorizing the data, I found the following information. When I received the documents back, the amount of documents indicated that this process is not completely effective, as only 5 out of 18 students returned the documents possessing their parents' comments about parent and student engagement. This finding indicates that another process for communicating with parents needs to be developed in order to generate communal discussion about student learning. Further research will need to investigate other methods to develop parent-teacher communication, as both my own artifact documents and phone calls used in other research such as Bennett Conroy and Kraft and Doherty were not completely sufficient in creating an engaging communal discussions with parent and teacher. On the other hand, information I found within my own research correlates with information found within the artifacts. According to Hackford, O'Sullivan, Chen, and Fish, parental involvement has a positive effect in relation to the completion of homework. This was evident within the artifacts as students who submitted their homework possessed comments from their parents about the process of completing the task. Furthermore, what 2016 suggested that parent-teacher communication is important as it relates to student academic achievement. Therefore, based on the artifacts, all the students who completed the homework task illustrated a strong understanding of content. This could be a result of parental assistance and engagement. Thus, through homework, teamwork exemplified within the comments section, student academic achievement can be tied to parental assistance and engagement.
In my part of the research, I used the pre- and post surveys to analyze the effectiveness of student-centered classroom discourse approach. From my study of the literature, the most common approach is called initiate, response, evaluate model, which is an approach that teachers initiate a discourse. Students give their responses, and then teachers leave feedback to students' responses. However, the effectiveness of this approach is questioned by recent scholars. In order to make the classroom discourse more effective, researchers proposed several modified versions to the IRE model. All of the new models are more student-centered. Also, in my literature review, there was little research takes students' perspectives in evaluating the effectiveness of classroom community. The research questions are designed based on the literature reviews. They fall into 5 domains, which are effectiveness of discourse, motivation in participating in the discourse, level of understanding, functional role of classroom community, and the sense of belonging to the classroom. By comparing the mean scores of the pre- and post survey, I found that students rated higher for each of the questions. Also, the paired sample t-test show that most of the items are significant, except questions C and G. The potential reason is that the scores in the pre-surveys are already high, which are greater than 4. So it is statistically approved that applying student-centered classroom discourse approach will help build a classroom discourse community.
After collecting and coding the combined data from our literature reviews and our primary source research, our group found that our individual projects had these categories in common: classroom discussion, meetings, parent-student discussion, teacher-student discussion, parent-student activities, peer teamwork, empathy, verbal tasks, mutual respect, and student choice. From these categories, we distilled our collective literature and primary source research down to 3 major themes: communication, collaboration, and understanding. From these themes, we are designing our proposed action research project. Although each group member found gaps within their academic literature, for the purposes of our action research project, we are going to focus on the observation Xing Zhang found, which was: very little research evaluated the effectiveness of classroom community from a student perspective. The finalized question is: how do we engage students to foster classroom community through communication, collaboration, and understanding in Western Sydney public secondary schools?
The Action Proposal Project requires the implementation of a program named CUC, Communication, Understanding, Collaboration. The program would be implemented at the beginning of the school year to a Year 7 cohort. The program would be implemented over a 24-month period following the same cohort of students throughout Stage 4. The program/researchers would meet with the Year 7 students once a week to initiate a learning phase of the program. The program would consist of strategies and activities to help students recognize and foster classroom community. The program would be disseminated to the students through lessons. Each lesson would be run by a researcher participant. Each lesson would focus on an aspect of the 3 main topics. The students would be grouped into their roll call classes for the CUC lessons. This longitudinal study would have a comparative data set or another school. The other school would be a control. The control school would not receive the CUC program, but researchers would use the same data collection methods to obtain data on classroom community. This would result in comparative data sets showing the effectiveness of the CUC program within Western Sydney secondary public schools and its effectiveness to encourage students to foster classroom community through collaboration, communication, and understanding.
Initial ethical considerations identified by our group are as following. Students would require parental consent to participate in the research project. The purpose, data, and how we will use it have to be clearly communicated. The intent of our project would have to be clear and agreed upon by both participants and researchers. The researchers would have to be wary of coercion throughout the project. A keyword encourage within our research question may be misinterpreted with coercive practice. The last ethical consideration identified is keeping the anonymity of schools due to specific context of Western Sydney secondary school region.
The secondary data that we must collect from current academic peer-reviewed literature is a worldview understanding within the secondary educational field of classroom community, communication, collaboration, and understanding.
The data collection that will be used for this program consists of surveys, interviews, and journal reflections. The first method of data collection is surveys, which will consist of both pre and post. The pre-survey will attempt to investigate student perspectives of a variety of elements that range within their sense of belonging, in reference to communication, collaboration, and understanding. At the conclusion of the program, students will be surveyed again with the same questions in order for the researchers to comparatively analyse the progressive thoughts of students. The second form of data collection is audio-recorded interviews with teachers to engage in reflective conversation about classroom community in relation to the three key areas of the program: community, collaboration, and understanding. This form of data collection will allow the researchers to visualise teachers' perspectives of the program, as it will inform researchers about the successes and work needed for the program. The third method of data collection will be a self-reflective PMI journal, completed by both students and teacher. This process will involve students and teachers reflecting on what they have learnt within the CUC program lessons on a weekly basis. This reflective practice will be informative for all members involved, as these weekly reflections will illustrate changes as a result of the program.
In order to analyse the data from the data collection methods, the team will triangulate and analyse the information gathered. The analysis process will consist of coding the data, categorising the codes, and transferring those existing categories into common themes from Mertler 2014, Angus Stone, Wilson 2012. Within the process of analysing data, it will involve grouping and comparing information we have found within the two schools. Based on the data gathered, the team will assess what aspects of the CUC program needs to be redeveloped in order to improve the program and investigate other aspects of possible new research. After reflecting upon the data, a new research question may be developed which will inspire further research in a newly raised issue, and the cycle repeats itself again.
These are all the references. We have done a lot of reading. JD's really smart, and Daniel has a shiny head that makes him really smart. Oh, zing. No, it's Taylor. Taylor did a lot of reading. Then there's also Zing. Zing is also very smart. He comes from China, you know.